All right, we are back here on the podcast, the long anticipated Jets offseason preview episode here. I got a great guest for you today. One of the co-hosts of the Gangs All Here podcast and the one of the co-founders of UStadium, Frankie Vittorini is here. Frankie, welcome. How are you?
Mike, my man, how you doing, man? This has been a long time in the works, but we are here together, finally ready to talk about the Jets. I know we've been talking about doing this for a while, so it's cool to be on the same stream for once.
Yeah, definitely cool to be on the same stream. I think the delays worked out for us because it seemed to give us more news like every time. It's never boring with the Jets.
No, it never is, it never. And plus, the combine just finished, and I was all into all the workings there and what was happening in Indy. So yeah, let's
Yeah.
rock out, man.
Yeah, that's rock out here. Let's start obviously with the drama around Aaron Glenn's coaching staff. Obviously, he has the bad year. There's 10 different teams move on from coaches. Glenn gets a second year despite some of the dysfunction they had at the end of the season here. It's a lot of drama with his coaching staff where he turns over about two-thirds of it in the offseason. Both coordinators are out. There's the whole Wink Martindale mess where they fly him in during that first snowstorm in January. He doesn't take the job because of question of who's calling the plays. You have the Tanner Engstrand situation where he leaves because he doesn't want to be demoted to not calling plays. They bring in Frank Reich. What's your take on all of this coaching drama here with the Glenn staff?
Man, it's just the thing with the Jets right now is I don't really know if they understand what their long-term vision is at this point because I would have kept Tanner Engstrand ideally. Um, you want someone who's young, who's going to be able to put together a system that you know you can look forward to in 2, 3, 4 years. Although offensive coordinators seem to bounce around quite a bit these days, so it's not always realistic. But I liked what I saw at Tanner. With Frank, what you're going to get is more of is you're going to raise the floor. You'll get a more established system, something that has years of proof in terms of effectiveness in this league. So you saw that Glenn is really just trying to, I don't want to say save his job per se. I don't know if that's the case, but he's definitely trying to raise that floor. And they're just trying to put together a team that doesn't really embarrass themselves like I think this past team did. So that's really what's going on. It's tough to put my finger on exactly what their strategy here is, but at the end of the day, I think Glenn and that staff are just trying to do what they can to win as many games in 2026 as possible.
Yeah, the thing I always wonder about with that situation here is like obviously there have been rumors floating about like did Woody Johnson step in and say, no, you're calling plays. I'm paying you this much money. You're going to do this. I know Glenn went to the combine and said that's not true. Woody's ultimately supportive here. Like, do you think the owner had some involvement here in some of these like decisions, like with the drama that went on here, especially like the Wink Martindale thing particularly jumped out to me because this is a weird to you remember last month when we were at the big snowstorm at the end of January, had like 2 feet of snow on the ground. They brought him into the building and let him go out without a job, which seemed very odd.
Yeah, listen, man, I have no idea. I really don't. I'm not going to say one way or the other. I do think a lot of what they do is collaborative. So they probably did sit down and they're probably idea bouncing off each other. What do you think? This is where we're at. What about this? What about that? I mean, it's like any meeting in business for the most part that's at a level at that high up of a level where it can get contentious given the circumstances around the team and where they're at. And there might be like, well, what's the point of bringing Wink in? You can call plays, can't you? Well, yeah, I can. I would actually love to. All right, well, there you go. Like, I'm not saying that's from Woody, but these are collaborative things. I don't. I'm pretty sure there wasn't like an addendum by Woody saying you have to do it. I mean, I don't think so. So I would say not. But at the end of the day, man, like Aaron Glenn's got to prove something. And if he thinks that's calling plays on defense, then he's he's better call plays on defense. I mean, from his perspective, if he knows that he's not going to be able to be the CEO that he thought he was, and he was a little bit in over his head, or he was in over his head in that role. Because you have to understand something, Mike, and everyone out there, I'm sure, like understands this, but like you really should understand that being the CEO head coach is a lot different than being a defensive minded head coach or an offensive minded head coach where you're calling plays. It's a different kind of structure. It's a different kind of there's a different kind of environment that you're setting out there, and that includes for your coaches. So yeah, this was just something where I think Glenn wanted to do something that he clearly wasn't ready to do, and then he just went back to what he should have done from year one to start.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that here. A lot of interesting stuff to come out of the combine from them this week, including media availability here in terms of I think one that sort of emerged today was sort of the whole like that the idea they're going to put the transition tag on Brees Hall, which was something I think Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic reported. And I think it's an interesting choice here because I know Darren Muji made a big deal. Like, we want him back. We think he's an important part of the offense here, but not using the franchise tag here where, he basically can't leave unless you trade him. This basically now is sort of like, okay, we're going to see if the market wants to overpay Brees. So I think they are open to letting him leave. Darren Muji kind of said the opposite.
Yeah, the thing with Brees Hall, so there's two kinds of tags here. Or there's three kinds of tags. The exclusive tag, you pay him, 16 million, but he can't seek other deals with other teams. The non-exclusive tag, he can seek other deals with teams. You pay him 14.5 million, but if another team wants to sign him, they'd have to give you 2 first-round picks. Which, would a team ever do that for a running back? A team wouldn't even give you 2 first-round picks to have a running back make $0 a year, honestly. And the third kind of tag is the transition tag, which is 11.3 million, which allows other teams to negotiate with Brees freely. And if he wants to go, they don't have to give up any picks, but the Jets obviously have the right to match. The transition tag is what's the most interesting here, because if the Jets feel like they don't know what Brees's value is, or if Brees and his agent don't feel like they know what their value is, the Jets might say, go out there, seek deals, let other teams kind of do the work, or let the market dictate what your value is, and we'll decide to match or not. There's positives and negatives with all three, right? The exclusive tag, the player gets paid the most, kind of everyone goes home. The team's not that happy necessarily because they're paying 16 mil instead of 11.3 or 14 and a half. The player though can negotiate. They're okay with making 16 million. The non-exclusive is less than the exclusive, but the team allows a player to go out, but the player knows no other team is really going to give up 2 first rounders for me. And I always see the non-exclusive, Mike, was really meant for quarterbacks. That was why it was made, not for running backs or wide receivers. The player might be a little bit disgruntled and say, what? Like, you clearly are just trying to pay me less and not allow me to seek a long-term deal. And that sucks, and I don't like that. And that's what kind of happened with the Giants and Saquon to a degree. And the transition tag kind of works a little bit for everybody, but it puts the team in a bind if an offer comes out that they're not ready to match. So this is chess in a lot of ways, because it's not only what kind of tags you're looking at, it's also how the player reacts to the kind of tag you're giving him.
Yeah, it's a really interesting perspective with this situation too, because they have over 90 million cap room. They can find a deal with Brees if they want to, but the fact they haven't makes you wonder here. I know they've said all the right things. They want to keep him, and obviously you want to have a guy who rushes for 1,000 yards and has the kind of capability he does for a run for his team. But it makes you wonder here: do they think okay, if somebody wants to give him, an absurd amount of money, are we fine just letting him walk and drafting somebody and hoping we get a reasonable approximation of his production?
Yeah, I mean, Mike, if someone offers Brees 5 years, 60 million bucks, or let's say someone realistic, 4 years, 48 million, the Jets might not be willing to match that. They might tell themselves, I'm out. We're not going to do that. So, I mean, no, I mean, from the Jets' perspective, they're rebuilding, Mike. I mean, if running backs, you might not want to tie up money. I mean, it's not that much money necessarily per year per se, like when you're comparing it to other, values, cross positional needs, but it's it's not some slam dunk there that the Jets have to match a 4-year, $48 million contract. I wouldn't. I was talking with Jake before I was on his show. I was saying it's 3 years, 33 million was what I would offer him, 11 per.
Yeah. We'll see what ends up happening with the Brees Hall market. They made another move with the Combine last week, a trade that kind of nobody saw coming here. They send Jermaine Johnson out to Tennessee for defensive tackle Devondre Sweat, and we know that.
Oh,
What you said?
no, 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 nothing. No, I said that was a good deal.
Yeah. I would say very interesting deal as well because obviously the Jets had needs in the middle. We've heard that there's rumblings that they could go multiple fronts here. Devondre Sweat helps with that here. But the thing you wonder about with the Jermaine Johnson trade is this whole idea of they have seen the pass rush deteriorate rapidly over the past few years. Will McDonald's the only proven guy there as an edge rusher. We're not far away from you and me having to line up and rush the passer for the Jets. So what exactly is the plan here, you think, for the Jets with the pass rush?
I mean, listen, Mike, I think if you and I lined up, I feel like I want to line up on the same side as you, though. We'd run a stunt together.
Yeah.
You'd stunt. We do like an X stunt. You'd go out to the tackle, and I'd be outside, and I'd just cut right in, and that guard would be out to lunch. But listen, I mean, Mike, they're gonna draft an edge, second overall. I mean, that's so it's either Arvell Reese or it's David Bailey. Um, Will McDonald's probably going to get his 5th-year option. So he'll be here this year, and then he'll get his 5th year next year. So he'll extend him, another year. And I think it makes sense because I don't know. I think Will's got upside that you want to replicate as much as you can. I mean, you don't get 4 sacks in a game by accident. You can, I mean, but usually you don't. I mean, Will McDonald's one of 3 Jet players ever to have 4 sacks in a game. That's Mark Gastineau and John Abraham. So if you can replicate that over and over again, he can be a 15 sack guy potentially. Potentially, right? It's not likely, but there's potential. And they just, grabbing an edge at second overall is the move that I wanted, and now we definitely know it's going to happen after the Jermaine Johnson Devondre Sweat trade.
Yeah. Do you have a preference on who you want that edge to be?
I want David Bailey, 100%. Yeah, that's my preference. I think David Bailey, he is a relentless, violent, fast, smart, brings a lot of variety to his pass rush plan sort of edge that Arvell Reese is projected to be one of those. Arvell Reese now has the prototype of someone that could be that. He has a prototype of someone that could be anything, actually, if you want to go into Arvell Reese's measurables. I mean, the guy's off the charts all over the place, so I get why people like him, and I wouldn't be mad if we drafted Arvell. I wouldn't be happy, though, about it, but I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't smash my fist against the table. But David Bailey's that guy to me, man. David Bailey is a guy that if you line him up on the outside and you just tell him, get home, man, he won't stop until he gets home. And that's what it's about. I don't know if Arvell Reese is that guy. I don't know if Arvell Reese, if his first move doesn't work, if he might get a little down on himself or not go for that second or third move. I mean, pass rushing is a wrestling match. You might go in with one move, doesn't work. You got to counter the other. Got to rip, got to swim, you got to spin. Got to have a bunch of stuff in your arsenal. Arvell Reese hasn't really shown that. He's shown the speed. He's shown the strength. But I can't project somebody that I don't know if they know how to do that yet. And Arvell's going to take him time to do that. Now, you might get a guy in year 3 or 4 of that is getting 17 sacks a year and is one of the best edge rushers in the game. And David Bailey's sitting around 8 to 9 to 10. I mean, that's possible. But I think David Bailey's that guy. I really do. I think he's got the right head on his shoulders. He's got all the metrics. So for every measurable that Arvell Reese has, it's not like Bailey's got anything lower. and Bailey ran a 4.5. That was the best out of the bunch. Bailey's measurables speak for themselves too. The guy was on Bruce Feldman before the college years freak list. He squats 550 pounds. He benches 405. So the only thing with Bailey's a little stiff, which he is in his hips, but that's fine.
Yeah, I think for me, I think the way you're describing it to simplify for I think for the audience here, they're like David Bale's like the safe option. Like you kind of know what he's going to give you, and
Yes.
he's kind of idiot proof for a coaching staff you're not sure about. Whereas like Arvell Reese, the mystery box, where like if you coach him right, you get a lot of potential. Maybe you have Micah Parsons. If you don't, you might have Vernon Golston, which Jet fans don't want to relive. So I feel like if you're worried about this coach has the ability to get the most out of their guys, maybe you want to take the safer thing with David Bailey.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, David Bailey's like high floor. Arvell Reese is high ceiling. Arvell Reese high ceiling, maybe a lower floor. David Bailey higher floor, maybe a lower ceiling. That's kind of how I look at it. Exactly what you said.
Yeah, so I think in terms of other stuff here, the quarterback situation is going to be interesting here because obviously they're cutting Justin Fields. We don't know when yet. We are.
Damn it. Come on. Why would they do that?
Yeah.
I'm joking.
Yeah, so he's going to be gone. Tyrod Taylor's a free agent. God bless Brady Cook, but he's not going to take a snap for the Jets next year. So who exactly is playing quarterback for the Jets next year, in your opinion?
Oh man. I don't know why, but recently I've been getting the Marcus Mariota vibes. Been getting a lot of Marcus Mariota vibes because I think the Jets are going to knock on the doors of Malik Willis and his team and say, "Hey, Malik, would you be interested in coming here? And we'll give you, $65 million over 3 years." And they'll shut the door in our face because they're looking for more than that. So I think that conversation will be ended. Brian Costello from the New York Post Sports just reported about a few hours ago, and Ryan piggybacked on it. The news that Kirk Cousins is not of any interest here, so that won't happen. So that's out. I've heard Davis Mills, but apparently Houston doesn't want him, so he's out. Are they really going to look at guys like Carson Wentz like to start here? So take like those secondary guys that haven't really started in years out. I kind of feel like it's kind of a race between Marcus Mariota, um, and if they're looking at like trading for Tanner McKee, I think are the two kind of favorites to sort of start the year. I know that's crazy. That's crazy to say, but um, I don't know in the draft. I'm sure that Ty Simpson is somewhere on their radar. I don't know how high. I don't think he's in play at 16, but things kind of change and we'll know more after free agency what's going on. Because if they do go with Marcus Mariota and Tanner McKee, let's say they go into a competition with both those guys, hypothetically, that makes Ty Simpson a lot more attractive when it comes to being in that room. You kind of have two veterans, quote unquote, and then you have a rookie there. Sort of similar situation what the Giants did last year,
Yeah, I think the
just on a
biggest
lot lesser of a scale.
Yeah, so I think the biggest scares me at Ty Simpson is like the whole like thing about how like college players need to start a certain amount of games to have a chance in the NFL. He's only started 15 games, which is I know he's been a coach's son, he's been around systems forever, but like you don't get that experience by sitting on the bench. You get experience by playing here. And like the Jets have tried this before and it has not worked out well for them. I know Mark Sanchez is probably the big example you point to there, but like I do think like it does feel like this is a year where they're kind of like, going to punt and say, okay, let's just get a floor raiser in here so you don't look like complete idiots on offense. And then next year we have 3 first-round picks. We'll kind of go get the guy we want.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Next year's the year for quarterback, man. No doubt about it. I mean, 3 first-round picks, and trust me, I don't like making assumptions into the future with draft classes, but next year's draft class with quarterbacks is going to be stacked. Like 1,000%. If I would bet my life on it, honestly. I just know it. There's guys that could have came out this year that would have made this class a lot juicier. Dante Moore, Lenoris Sellers, etc. That didn't. They're going to come out next year. Plus, you're going to add next year's class. And then you're going to have sleepers that we're not even talking about now that are going to pop out next year. Next year should have like, at least five, six options for the Jets. You got to get the right ones. That you got to get the right one. I mean, but I have faith that next year is the right time to sort of address quarterback. Go into this year, fix up your holes, evaluate the roster, see who's worthy of starting or getting more looks or playing time in 27, and then you can go into 27 with a good slate of players, and then you could throw a quarterback in to kind of make things work.
Yeah, that's true. Here, so you're looking at the free agents here. You're trying to fill some holes here. They have about like 90 million in cap room theoretically. They have a
Yeah.
lot of options of holes to fill. Like they don't really have anybody worthy of an extension. Not like you can take care of Garrett Wilson like you did last year here. Like, what do you think they spend this money on? Like, what are some of the types of players that they're gonna be looking at on the free agent market?
So I think they're going to look at defensive players, of course. So like you're going to get guys, some of the safeties in this market are really uh, unique and good too. So you have Jalen Hawkins, who I'm a big fan of. I like him for two reasons. One, he can do a little bit of everything at safety, a little bit of a ball hawk too, and you're taking him away from the Patriots, which is always nice, right? Take one of theirs. I'm always under the assumption that's always a good idea. Um, and then you have Cameron Curl, who I'm a big fan of too. I think LA wants him back, but they can't really afford him, so he's somebody else because he's really good against the run. So both those safeties actually are guys that can come up in the box and help you out, whereas your linebackers may not be all that you need to stop the run. But you may have deficiencies on the outside. If you bring in, let's say, Bailey and McDonald, you're going to need some guys to cover up the tracks there. So I'm looking at a safety for sure, and I think they will too. Corner's always something that you can look at in free agency because you may not want to, allocate draft capital there. So I really like Jamel Dean. I think he's been good in every game he's played. He's always just an efficient player. He's one of the best against the pass, and his EPA is just he's always at the top of the league there. So I like him. And then wide receivers, something else I think they could look at. I mean, I don't know what Wandell Robinson's market is. I don't know because this isn't really a deep wide receiver free agency class. Got Alec Pierce, Mike Evans. Mike Evans will have his pick though, like where he wants to go. He'll decide that himself. I don't think it'll be the Jets. Alec Pierce, they might franchise tag him. They're talking about. So then like Wandell becomes like in that like next, two or three receivers you'd look at. So he might get more money than you'd be comfortable with. But looking at like a slot receiver, we need one. We need somebody that plays underneath. Wandell caught a ton of balls. I think he caught 185 balls the last 2 years. He's somebody you're really gonna want there to alleviate some of the stuff that you're putting on Garrett.
Yeah. I think also one guy I'm watching personally, I think like we did not really see the trend that a lot of these coaches have. Like we bring somebody from my old team in to help install my system here. I think guy watching, I think like the linebacker, like Alex Anzalone, feels like a guy who like Glenn loves and like he loves Glenn. I feel like that could be a guy you try and bring it in still like your program if you're Glenn.
I agree. I think he's a veteran too, and he knows what Glenn's defense. He knows the kind of defense that Glenn wants, and that'll be big for Aaron Glenn because listen, when you're calling plays as a defensive coach, that takes time. And you need guys to, especially linebackers, to know what you want to call and how you want to call it and what you want to do. You don't want those guys messing things up. Aaron Glenn doesn't have a lot of time or luxury to say, oh, I hope Jamie Sherwood knows what I want to do or figures it out by like week 6. And what's your record at that point? Do you have the luxury? Are you going to be around? So he's going to want someone that's going to be able to hit the ground running with his defensive strategy from day one. He doesn't have the luxury, Aaron Glenn, to wait for a linebacker to figure it out, even 4 or 5 weeks into the season. Like, no, I need someone to figure this out from Jump Street. And that's obviously Alex Anzalone. I mean, he played with Glenn for years there in Detroit. So he knows exactly the kind of defense Glenn wants to call. I think that's That's as close to a slam dunk signing as you'll get. I'm not the biggest Alec Anzalone fan as like a middle linebacker. Like I'm not. I don't. He's not. He doesn't do enough for me. But I think for Glenn's sake and for what he wants to do, it makes sense. So
I think it does here. In terms of the draft, obviously we know they have a lot of needs. I think they've been covered extensively. Like my sort of thought at the draft, I'm curious if your opinion here is like, do you like they have the four picks the first two rounds? They have obviously the picks next year, the three the first round, and their own second round pick here. Like, do you think that they make all those picks? Or you feel like they're moving around the board to get specifically target guys they want? Because I feel like this is a spot where like you could really argue either direction.
yeah. So if I had to say, the three first rounders next year, the two first rounders and 2 seconds this year. So that's seven, let's say,
Yeah.
picks there. I think there'll be movement. I think this year, I don't think the Jets are going to be picking 2, 16, 33, and 44. I don't think they're picking in those spots. If I had to guess, I think they might come back up a little bit with 44, and they'll utilize that piece with 16 or 33 to maybe move back up to kind of make some noise, um, and really get some quality talent in here.
Yeah.
Remember, talent is something that they've been speaking about. They don't feel like they have it, and looking at the roster, they really don't. So I think if they want Makai Lemon, let's say you package 16 and 44, that gives you the points required to get up to 7, which isn't how it works always, but you can get around 10, similar to what the Saints did when they got Chris Olave, almost identical of a deal, moving from 16 up. So they just didn't trade 44. They had traded they traded like I think a third and a fourth. But the Jets can do something like that, and they could really make some noise. I'd love to come out of this draft with, David Bailey and Makai Lemon and draft 33. I don't need 44 at that point. Draft BPA at 33. If you want to shore up a guard because AVT's out, get the best guard. And you could get, Chase Basantis at 33. David Bailey, Makai Lemon, and Chase Basantis. I don't need 44. I would love that if Makai Lemon dropped to 16, but he probably won't. I would like Jordan Tyson. I like Jordan Tyson more than Makai Lemon, by the way. So I would love, Bailey, Tyson, and the next best player. We don't need defensive tackle. I think we could safely cross off the list um, in the first 2 rounds, and we don't have a third rounder. But if we do want to do something in the third round, you cross it off for that round too. I don't think they're going to look at. They might look at a defensive tackle maybe later in day 3. But yeah, there's flexibility, man. I mean, nobody actually has more flexibility than the New York Jets do this year and next year. We really control a lot of what this draft's going to look like. We control the draft in a lot of ways. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think my last question here, obviously, we're in a sport where like not true parity, but there's a lot of years like, okay, this team was in last place, they had a good offseason, now they're in the playoffs next year. The Jets not had that happen in a long time. Is there any scenario you could see where that happens next season?
Will the Jets make the playoffs?
Yeah,
Uh, Listen, I'll say this. All right, I'll give you a Jets make the playoff scenario. You want to hear it? A
sure.
realistic one. All right. So this is all right. All right. Let's get this ready. All right. All right. This is how the Jets make the playoffs. I'll give it to you. Draft David Bailey second overall. Draft Vega Ioane 16th overall. At 33, draft Omar Cooper Jr. at 33, wide receiver out of Indiana.
Okay.
And at 44, draft Anthony Hill Jr., Texas linebacker. So David Bailey, Vega Ioane, Omar Cooper Jr., and Anthony Hill Jr., 2 juniors right there. So you have, for me there, you fix edge. You fix your O line complete, like whatever your O line needed to be like great. I think you added that. 33, you added enough of a complimentary piece to Garrett Wilson. And then at 44 with Anthony Hill Jr., you give someone that Jamie Sherwood could depend on. That's a baller. Guy's great. My favorite linebacker in this draft. People have CJ Allen there. I have Anthony Hill Jr. there. I would sign Jalen Hawkins or Cameron Curl, one of the two, and I'd sign Malik Willis. If you want to make the playoffs, that team right there, just what I just stated, would make the playoffs. I could make the playoffs. Excuse me, not would, could. Right there. That blueprint could get you to 9 wins. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely could. Malik Willis has enough of a variability where people haven't caught on to really how he plays. A big play kind of guy, can run a little bit of that read option. If you obviously you're bringing Brees back on a franchise tag too, that's another part of the deal. And I would obviously sign another corner too. But that right there, man. I mean, you got juice everywhere. Your D line looks good. Your linebacking core looks really good. Your secondary's not great, but it could be good enough, especially if you're getting to the passer. With Will McDonald and Bailey on both sides, quarterback's not going to have too much time. So even though your D backs are going to be a weakness of your defense, you'll be okay. Your O line's going to be really good. Your quarterback will be average-ish. You got a running back there in Brees. You have a really good wide receiving core, and your tight ends are okay. I would draft another one later. That's the blueprint.
Yeah, so that I could see that being the blueprint here, but like I feel like realistically, you and I both would agree here. This is probably still a multi-year project before they get back to the playoffs.
Oh, definitely no, no, for sure. Listen, Mike, how it is? If the Jets make the playoffs next year, me, you, and Nick and Martino and Nick's brothers, Anthony and Bill, I'm gonna pay for all of us. We're gonna go to we're gonna go to stay. I was gonna say a Jets game, but I swear we're gonna go to a nice steakhouse. I'm gonna pay for it. We're gonna have some nice vino, some nice steaks. You like tomahawks, right?
Oh, of course.
All right, cool. So we're gonna have a nice. We're gonna have a tomahawk. We're gonna go to a strip house in the city. We'll do nice tomahawks and some nice red vino.
Yeah, for a second, they're going to say, "Oh, we're going to go to MetLife." Like the Jets don't host playoff games; they haven't done that in like 20 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're gonna go to Jets game. I'm like, you know what? I got a better idea. We're gonna go get a steak.
Yeah, even so, just the like final point to wrap up here, like it's insane to think about here, like that how often it is. Like I've said to people off the air, like it's like the worst investment in this town seems to be Jet season tickets. You get no return on the investment between the teams being out of it early, and like you never get to host a playoff game.
No, they're just terrible. I don't know. Yeah, it's between that and like I don't know what's the worst investment. That or remember the Bored Ape clubs when they were doing like those cards for crypto, those NFTs.
That's up there.
I don't know what's the worst investment. The Bored Ape NFTs or Jet season tickets.
Because it feels like the Jets tickets, you're lighting the money on fire, and they want him back early from you also, which is not great.
Yeah. It's sad state of affairs. But I mean, I always tell people, Mike, I'm a believer in the law of averages, and you go through 15 years and I make the playoffs, looking like 16. It can't be 40, right? So I mean, it can't be. It's not 30. I mean, we could hit 20, 22. So like, hopefully, we're starting to hit the end of that of that dry streak.
Yeah, absolutely, Frankie. Thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. If you want to follow on social media, keep up with your Jets coverage. How can I do that?
Yeah, so you can find me at Frankie Vitz on Twitter, and then the group, the team I'm part of and help start, and great bunch of guys we got there at UStadium, letter U Stadium, and yeah, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it, man.
All the time. Hopefully, hopefully we're going to the steakhouse in January. We'll see.
Yes, yeah. Well, if they do, we're gonna. Yeah, if they make the play, we're gonna go to the steakhouse. That's done. Strip House. Remember, Strip House. I believe it's on 12th Street. It's my favorite steakhouse. Peter Luger probably is the best steakhouse in the city. I'd say Peter Luger's, but I like Strip House. That's my favorite. So we'll go to Strip House, and it's BYOB also. But they have a corkage fee, so I'll bring some wine from my dad's company. We'll bring over some nice Italian wine, some top end stuff that would normally be like 400 or 500 bucks there, but we're gonna bring it in, and it'll only be like $60. So yeah.